How come you're still awake? I was certain you would be sleeping by now. I didn't want to bother you, so I tried to be quiet. But considering you're apparently awake at this ungodly hour, why is that so? You can't sleep? Come on. Most of the stress is gone by now. Christmas is over, now only New Year's Eve is coming, and it's going to be relaxed. I know we're invited to that little party, but that's just what it is. Little. So... why don't you just try once more to get an ounce of sleep, huh? Why? Do you want me to read you a bedtime story? Is that what it is? Really? Of course. But who am I to say no to a face like that? But only a story, alright? I'm not going to tug you into bed and kiss you goodnight as well. I can just tell you a nice little story that I've picked up on the streets. How about that? I'm going to... well, as far as I'm aware, it's I think a German or a Swedish tale, something like that. I don't remember. Do you want me to tell it by my mind? Or should I look it up real quick? I'm sure I have something. Oh, sure. I can definitely find something to read. Give me a moment. There we go. Easy enough. So, since Christmas has just passed, this is a nice little Christmas story. Or at least, it has been told often around Christmas, so... well... oh, it's a nice story. Trust me. I certainly liked it as a kid. Now, the story is The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. He's written a lot of stories. Surely you've heard about some of them. Wasn't The Little Mermaid by him as well? Whatever. Now, it was terribly cold and nearly dark on the last evening of the old year, and the snow was falling fast. In the cold and darkness, a poor little girl with bare hands and naked feet roamed through the streets. It is true she had on a pair of slippers when she left home, but they were not of much use. They were very large, so large indeed, for they had belonged to her mother, and the poor little girl had lost them in running across the street to avoid two carriages that were rolling at a terrible pace. One of the slippers she could not find, and a boy seized the other, with saying that he surely would have good use for it. So the little girl went on with her little naked feet, which were quite red and blue for the cold. In an old apron she carried a number of matches, and had a bundle of them in their hands. No one had bought anything of her the whole day, nor had anyone given her even a penny. Shivering with cold and hunger, she crept along, looking like the picture of misery itself. The snowflakes fell on her fair hair, which hung in curls on her shoulders, but she regarded them not. Lights were shining from every window, and there was a savory smell of roast goose, for it was New Year's Eve. Yes, she remembered that. In a corner between two houses, she sank down and huddled herself together. She had drawn her little feet under her, but could not keep the cold off, and she dared not to go home, for she had not sold any matches. Her father would certainly beat her, Besides, it was almost as cold at home as here, for they had only the roof to cover them. Her little hands were almost frozen with the cold. Perhaps burning a match might be some good if she could draw it from the bundle and strike it against the wall just to warm her fingers. She drew one out, and how it sputtered as it burned. It gave a warm, bright light like a candle as she held her hand over it. It was really a wonderful light. It seemed as though she was sitting by a large iron stove. Oh, how the fire burned and seemed so warm. But then the flame of the match went out. The stove vanished as she had only had the mains of the half-burnt match in her hand. She rubbed another match on the wall. It burst into a flame, and where its light fell upon the wall it became as transparent as a veil, and she could see into the room. The table was covered with a snowy white tablecloth on which stood a splendid dinner service and a steaming roast goose stuffed with apples and dried plums. And what was still more wonderful, the goose jumped down from the dish and waddled across the floor with a knife and fork in it to the little girl. But the match went out again, and nothing remained but the thick, damp, cold wall behind her. She lighted another match, and she found herself sitting under a beautiful Christmas tree. It was larger and more decorated than the ones she had seen through the rich merchant's glass door. Thousands of tapers were burning upon the green branches, and colored pictures like those she had seen in the shop windows looked down upon it all. The little one stretched out her hand towards them, and the match went out. The Christmas lights rose higher and higher till they looked to her like the stars in the sky. Then she saw a star falling, leaving behind it a bright streak on fire. Someone is dying, thought the little girl, for her old grandmother, the only one who ever loved her, had told her that when a star falls, a soul was going up to the sky. She again rubbed the match on the wall, and the light shone around her. In the brightness stood her grandmother, clear and shining, yet mild and loving in her appearance. "Grandmother," the little one called out, "oh, take me with you. I know you will go away when the match burns out. You will vanish like the warm stove, the roast goose, and the large glorious Christmas tree." As she made haste to light the whole bundle of matches, for she wished to keep her grandmother there, and the matches glowed with a light that was bright as the noonday, and her grandmother had never appeared so large or so beautiful. She took the little girl in her arms as they both flew upwards in brightness and joy far above the earth, where there was neither cold nor hunger nor pain. In the dawn of morning there lay the poor little one, with pale cheeks and smiling mouth, leaning against the wall. She had been frozen on the last evening of the year, and the New Year's sun rose and shone upon a little child. The child still sat holding the matches in her hand, one bundle of which was burned. "She tried to warm herself," said someone. No one imagined what beautiful things she had seen, nor into what glory she had entered with her grandmother on New Year's Day. The end. Why are you looking so shocked? It's a classic. Yes, I guess it's kind of not the nicest story. It doesn't have a happy end, but who needs happy endings? Real life rarely has a happy end either, am I right? Wow. You do look more awake than you did before now. That's kind of a bummer. How about I tell you another story? I can't think of any Christmas ones, but there was this thick yellow book that I saw once, and it had like a few stories in them. I remember one about a kid getting their fingers chopped off, their thumbs, because it wouldn't stop sucking on them. Or the other one where the kid just walked along the path all the time without looking forward, and it was only looking in the sky, and just like that, he fell down into the water and drowned. Oh, oh, and another good one. There was this little boy who just would not want to eat his soup. And after, I think it was 7 days, he starved to death. Isn't that funny? Well, maybe we have different perceptions of fun. However, it doesn't matter much. How about I tuck you in after all, and getting you some, I don't know, do you drink tea? What, warm milk with honey? Ugh. I could make you something like that if that helps. Tucking you in is enough? How generous you are. Well then, alright. There we go. Blanket up to the nose. What? You waiting for something? What could you possibly be waiting for? Say please, and maybe I'll think about it. Alright. Since you asked so nicely, you can have a good night kiss as well. Always those special wishes. Now, good night and sleep well. And may you not suddenly freeze to death.